Historic prisoner swap, really a great example of international diplomacy, bringing 3 Americans home to their families after their Russian incarceration. President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris among those welcoming the newly freed Americans back to U.S. soil. We want to go to Good Day's Robert Moses, who's tracking it all for us. Good morning, Robert.
Dan, good morning to you. What a return this was. Just before 4:30 this morning, the 3 Americans landed in San Antonio, where it's expected they will be evaluated at Brooke Army Medical Center. That's standard procedure for detainees who have been let go. After the U.S. says they were unjustly imprisoned in Russia, they are now free. After landing at Joint Base Andrews late last night, Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich stood on American soil for the first time following nearly 500 days in Russian captivity. He embraced Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden. Then, in a moment of unadulterated joy and relief, he picked up his mother. Just last month, Gershkovich was convicted and sentenced to 16 years in prison. His release brought joy to not just his family and friends, but also to his colleagues at the Journal.
Evan, how does it feel to finally be home?
Not bad. I'm all right. It was a good flight.
54-year-old Paul Whelan, who was arrested in 2018 and, like Gershkovich, held on espionage charges, was also free.
I went on a 2-week vacation, you know. The FSB grabbed me, said I was a spy. I'm apparently a general in the Army, a secret agent for DIA. This is the nonsense narrative they came up with, and they wouldn't let it go. So, you know, this is how Putin runs his government.
The third person on the flight was Alsu Kurmasheva, a Russian-American journalist who was arrested last year and convicted last month of spreading false information about the Russian military. All told, the prisoner swap involved 24 people and 7 countries. Russia had been holding 15, Belarus 1, 8 were held in Western nations. One of those is Vadim Krasikov, a Russian who in 2021 was convicted of killing a former Chechen fighter in Berlin 2 years earlier on orders from the Russian government. President Vladimir Putin embraced him upon his return to Moscow.
What is your message tonight to Vladimir Putin?
Stop.
Earlier in the day, President Biden seemed to criticize former President Donald Trump without naming him. The former president has been skeptical of longtime American allies and alliances.
So for anyone who questions whether allies matter, they do. They matter.
Former President Trump derided the swap. He claims he could have secured the release of the captives without giving anything in return, to which President Biden said,
"Why didn't he do it when he was president?"
Even before he was freed, Gershkovich was hustling to get that story. According to the Journal, he asked to interview Russian President Putin on a form that he had to fill out, requesting presidential clemency right before his release. And on the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews, Gershkovich could be heard telling a friend that he had questions ready for Krasikov, the freed Russian assassin, in case he encountered him. Dan?
He's got a story to tell. Robert, thank you very much.